This is Rome. You know, Rome. Republic, gladiators, stabby, empire, Charlemagne, Ottomans. Oh, wait, what? I've talked the big talk about strategic geography and how it creates empires, trade cities, yada yada yada. So let's actually look at one of these examples. Of course, as tends to happen in all history, Rome's prestige was based in luck and ideas just as much as anything else. If you know Roman history, you'll know that there's a metric coliseum of luck in play, but the geographical aspect is what allowed it to start flourishing, and eventually rule the Mediterranean Sea. First off, Rome was founded in the 8th century BCE on the Palatine Hill, which is right next to the Tiber, the largest river on the peninsula. But before we analyze the benefits of this site, let's zoom out a bit and take in the broader image of the Italian peninsula. First, the climate. As a long and narrow peninsula, Italy's weather and temperature are dominated by the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean is a very warm sea, so Italy tends to have a pretty hot climate. The winters are mild, humid, and wet. The summers are pretty hot and dry, although there is variation among the regions, having to do with coastline, latitude, and cold mountain winds. The west coast tends to be a bit wetter than the east, which is better for growing crops. All of this means that Italy has a relatively moderate climate with quite predictable wet periods, which is very good for agriculture. Speaking of good agriculture, Rome and the surrounding regions have very nice, fertile soil due to the geological activity between the African and Eurasian plates. This means volcanoes, which pumped nutrients into the soil. All this good agriculture helped to attract people to Rome and boost its manpower. Along the peninsula runs the Apennine Mountains, which create large-ish rivers on the peninsula. Now, the Apennines aren't especially big or rugged. They have a lot of crossing points and don't have very steep slopes. As far as a mountain range goes, the Apennines never really disconnected the Romans from the other Italian civilizations, although it's still a mountain range, and it's much more difficult to cross and to fight in than flat terrain. The Romans had to learn that the hard way. 3 times. When all of Italy was controlled by Rome, the Apennines provided a barrier in the Italian homeland that would allow the Romans to muster a force to take out someone invading on the other side. Let's back up a little bit to when it was a small town. The geopolitical landscape of Rome definitely helped it, even though the civilizations around it became its rivals and enemies. Rome was in a region controlled by the Latins, a small piece of the Tyrrhenian coastline that shared a common language and culture, but was not politically unified. Latium, as it was called, is basically in the middle of Italia here. This area was the commercial center of the 3 biggies in the region. To the north was a league of Etruscan city-states. To the south were a network of Greek colonies, and in Sardinia and Africa were the colonies of Phoenicia. Through trade and conflict, the city adopted many things, like aspects of architecture, religion, government writing, and possibly even the name Rome itself. All of these helped to build the city that we know today. As for its local situation, the Tiber River was vital to Rome's development and expansion, as it gave them access to goods from the sea and allowed people to easily travel inland. As for the 7 hills of Rome, having hills in your city is always good for defense, as happened during the first sack of Rome in 390 BCE. When the city started gobbling up territory, it would expand faster and faster until basically all of France could be captured and subdued in just a few years. But that's much later. With most victories, they'd be left stronger. When they controlled Italy, the Alps became a more protective measure to the north, which worked until... With Rome's expansion throughout all of Italia, it gained access to even better resources, such as the salt works of Etruscan Veii, the fertile lands of Campania, and the natural harbors of Naples and Pisa. Of course, becoming bigger is going to bring you into conflict with more powerful peoples, like the Carthaginians. Since Italy is in the middle of the Mediterranean, its land and surrounding islands were strategic for controlling the trade of the sea. Also, having so many different people groups on the Mediterranean helped advance Roman society through cultural diffusion, and having vast amounts of relatively untapped lands, such as in Gaul and Hispania, as a part of the trade network didn't hurt either. Like I said earlier, Rome didn't owe all of its power and prestige to geography. Much of it came from smart people, a strong and advanced culture, competent leadership, shifts in attitudes, and stable institutions. A ton came from luck and critically important decisions of single people. But geography laid the groundwork for all of this. So, yeah.